What's going on everyone, it's Justin here, and today I've got my review and experience of the newest Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. So most of the things I'm going to say in this review are going to apply to the S10 as well, because aside from the size, the smartphone is pretty much exactly the same with exception to an RGB depth camera on the front. If you guys are wondering where my review of the S10e is, I still need to get my hands on that, so look forward to a video in the near future as well. But today we're here to talk about the S10 Plus and just some of the changes and improvements that Samsung made and whether or not I think a user from the Note 9 or the S9 should upgrade to Samsung's newest phone. But if you guys would like to win a Samsung Galaxy S10 for yourself, I'm giving away one on the channel. But the typical, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and also leave a comment down below. And also follow me on my Instagram and Twitter, as that's where I'm going to be announcing the winner once the giveaway ends. So just make sure you check that link down below to enter. So the Samsung Galaxy S10 was probably one of the most anticipated smartphones for the first half of 2019, and what people thought was going to kind of set the bar for what we should expect to see throughout the next year or so. And I will say, for the most part, Samsung really did meet those expectations. The design itself did see some major improvements, especially on the front when it comes to the hole punch camera, because Samsung did kind of avoid the whole notch wave that we saw in the past couple years. Some of the other major features of the phone though weren't changed as much and were kind of overshadowed by the big design change on the front, which some people may argue Samsung didn't exactly have to make changes in those categories. If you're coming from a Samsung device, the hardware is very familiar and the materials are still very well built and put together. The phone is beautiful. You do have the latest and greatest specs, but Samsung has also kept some hardware features that people still like to see on phones today. This includes a headphone jack on the bottom, which a lot of people who saw me carrying around the Samsung Galaxy S10 had asked me if the phone still has. The phone itself is available in black, the prism white, which I have here, and I think it looks really good with kind of the color hue and prism characteristics, as well as a blue, green, and in the S10 Plus you also have two ceramic options in black and white, which costs $250 more, but from holding on the device, it has a nice weight to it and feels very durable. On the spec side of things, the US model of this device comes with the newest Snapdragon 855 processor paired with 8GB of RAM, which is standard, whereas some of the international models you should expect to find the latest Exynos processor. You also have options up to 1TB in terms of storage, and with the expansion of the micro SD card slot, you effectively could have up to 1.5TB in this phone. For my uses of the device, I really didn't notice any lag whatsoever when doing everyday tasks, and I didn't notice that previously in any smartphone in the past 1 or 2 years. But it's good to know that you have the latest and greatest specs here, and with the games that are coming out that take advantage of the CPU and GPU, this phone will be more than capable. To a lot of people's delight, the Bixby button on the side is also customizable and remappable to anything you want this year. Otherwise though, when it comes to hardware of the phone, I think Samsung has done an excellent job, and they really didn't have to change much because the characteristic of the S10 and S10 Plus is so similar to the S9 and the Note 9, being a nice tapered feel, and I think Samsung's always done a great job in making larger smartphones feel comfortable to use. The metal band on the side and the glass back is a great combo, and I also noticed that the prism white model especially is great at hiding fingerprints. In my opinion, the biggest change you're going to notice on this phone though is the fact that you have the Infinity O display, which has the hole punch camera. This was actually the first time I saw a device with a hole punch camera, and I personally really like it. I think it looks really seamless, it stays out of the way, and there's no need to really hide the notch like a lot of people have done with their Android devices in the past couple years. I personally really like that Samsung has stuck to kind of the edge-to-edge design over the years, but now for 2019 I've come out with something that is as little intrusive as possible. If you really don't like the hole punch though, you still do have the option to hide it, but it does bring down the screen size a little bit. On the S10 Plus, you have a 6.4-inch Quad HD Plus dynamic AMOLED display, and it is super bright at up to 1200 nits and has a 100% coverage at 16 million colors. This thing has a resolution of 3040 by 1440, which gives it a 19:9 aspect ratio. The S10 on the other hand has a 6.1-inch display at a resolution of 2960 by 1440. Some of the other features of this display which I personally really like is the fact that there is a mode that actually enables the screen to have 40% less blue light. On my daily driver smartphone, I've been actually using it in night mode for the past couple months, and I just find that it reduces the amount of strain on your eyes because of how much I use my phone. From checking my battery stats, I typically have a screen on time of an average of 7 hours per day, which is a lot, so I think this blue light function is very good. I really do believe though that this will stand as one of the best displays throughout this year. Something else that is also under the display though is the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. So this is actually not a light emitted sensor, but instead it is an optical setup. It actually utilizes Qualcomm's 3D sensor, and from my uses, I kind of had mixed impressions about it. Some of the under display fingerprint sensors that I tried out late last year were decent and not exactly as reliable as previous sensors, which is as expected. but over time they did seem to get better. But on the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, although it was fast at times, it did take a couple tries occasionally. That is something that I'm sure will improve over time though, and it does actually learn your fingerprint as you use it a bit more, but in terms of a security standpoint, I think it is definitely the direction that the biometrics are going. Samsung opted not to do a 3D face unlock though for the Samsung Galaxy S10 line for this year, which honestly isn't my favorite option either, but if you're not a fan of the under-display fingerprint sensor, then there is also the option for the Samsung Galaxy S10e, which has it on the side. This one definitely doesn't come in cheap though, so I would recommend protecting it if you can, and a great recommendation I have is the Spigen line. Spigen silicone fit case, for example, is a layer of thin and light protection which gives you great scratch and drop protection, and I think it's great because it doesn't take up too much space on your device. It doesn't add much thickness whatsoever. Especially if you spend all the money on a nicely designed phone that is thin and light and beautiful, you don't want to kind of ruin that with a huge bulky case. The Spigen silicone fit case also has a soft interior lining which ensures that the phone doesn't get scratched while in the case. The edge coverage and bumper defense is also nice to see for drop protection, and it also has a lip that goes along the front, so if you drop your phone on its face, you should be okay. If you guys are looking for a hybrid case though, Spigen also has a Neo Hybrid and the Ultra Hybrid clear case, which also gives you a great level of protection in many different colors, and all the links to the products are going to be down below, and I would like to thank them for sponsoring this video. The great thing about all these cases though is that the wireless charging on the S10 and S10 Plus still works perfectly fine. Aside from the display though, I think the biggest change coming after that would be the camera and the new triple camera setup that is found on both the S10 and S10 Plus. Previously, the multi-camera setup was only available on the larger model, but this year it is available on both, and the S10e comes with a dual camera setup. This is definitely starting to become a trend in the smartphone industry, and I'm very happy to see it because the most powerful tool in terms of capturing photo and video, even for a videographer and photographer, is on your smartphone. The triple camera setup consists of a 12 megapixel f1.5 main camera as well as a 12 megapixel telephoto, which is an f2.4, but the newest camera on the block is a 16 megapixel f2.2 wide camera, which is something that I really love and not many companies were doing before. For any camera nerds out there, this essentially gives you a 12, 26, and 52mm focal length. The wide angle especially is a 123 degree lens, which is actually wider than the human field of view of 120 degrees. From looking at the photos, they definitely have a punch to it, they're sharp, they're pretty well balanced, and the dynamic range is definitely there. The dual pixel autofocus is fast though, and when it comes to the main camera, the low light performance is pretty good as well. The night sight mode on the Google Pixel still wins in my opinion, but I think the one on the Samsung Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus definitely beats out the low light performance on the iPhones. The video recording is great as well, and I think the wide camera comes especially handy for Instagram stories when you're in portrait mode. But one thing that you do have to remember is that the optical stabilization is on the main camera and the telephoto camera and not found on the wide camera. So if you're doing a lot of motion or low light, then you might want to stick to the two main cameras. The Samsung Galaxy S10 is also the first device to be able to record video in HDR10+. This is the high dynamic range mode, which is viewable on devices that are HDR compatible. So the front-facing camera on the Samsung Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus actually received the highest DxO rating, and although it doesn't really mean much, I was personally very curious. The front cam on this guy is 10 megapixels and an f1.9 aperture, and that also has dual pixel autofocus, and on the S10 Plus you also have an RGB depth sensor. Overall, the quality on the front camera is really good, and I do like to see that it also has the ability to record 4K video at 30 frames per second on the front. So being such a powerhouse of the smartphone when it comes to specs, the display, the brightness of it, and just all the tech that is packed inside such a small body, you might expect that the battery life is not that good, or at least not that much improved from the previous generation. And this year they actually did make a pretty good change, and a battery improvement that I'm pretty satisfied with from my usage. The battery on the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus is 4100 mAh, which gives you up to 25% improvement from the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. For my uses, I was able to get about a full day of shooting a lot of photo and video, especially in San Francisco, and I think the improvement is good, but you shouldn't expect to get more than anything like a day and a half if you're a medium to light user. As a heavy user though, you should be able to get through an entire day no problem, and that is a really nice peace of mind to have because I personally have to use the battery case on the iPhone XS Max in order to get through an entire day. A lot of the improvements in the battery also come with Samsung's smart optimization that kind of learns and puts apps in the background based on how little you might use some of them, and that is something that is useful for me especially because I tend to use the same 6 apps and the rest just get used very occasionally. But now into wireless charging, and that is kind of the future of smartphones and how they get faster and faster as you move forward. Plugged-in charging is getting faster as well, and I think wireless charging is something that I personally started to use recently, but previously I was kind of skeptical just because of how long it took to charge phones. The Samsung Galaxy S10 line has wireless charge 2.0 compatibility, which can allow your phone to charge up to 36% faster. Perhaps one of the most talked about feature on the S10 though is wireless power share, which allows you to use your phone as a wireless charging pad, which is really nice to see. So if your friend has a wireless charging phone that runs out of batteries, you can kind of piggyback off of that, and you can enable it very easily in your settings just from sliding down in the slider. Despite being a feature that I don't exactly use too much, this is a really nice feature to see, and Samsung has already introduced a product that is compatible with that and really takes advantage of it, and that is the Galaxy Buds. So if your wireless earbuds, for example, run out of battery, just go ahead and enable it on the phone and put it on the back and you're good to go. But now onto the software, which uses the latest version of Android and Samsung's One UI, and I kind of have mixed impressions about it. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the big icons, but after a little bit of customization and reducing the icon size and text size, I've got it to the point where I think it is a pretty enjoyable experience, but I would personally still prefer a launcher. Otherwise, the One UI gives you a very fluid experience. The phone itself just runs very smoothly, and just all the settings and everything are exactly where you should expect it coming from a Samsung. Bixby still takes up the left side of your screen, and that's something that I still haven't really found myself using over the years, but it's nice that the button on the side can be remappable directly without having to use any third-party apps. That's just personally my opinion though. Some people might really love the Samsung One UI where others might prefer a launcher, but the great thing about Android is that you do have a lot of customizability with that. Aside from the headphone jack for audio, you also have a stereo speaker which has one of the speakers kind of just hidden on the top, which is almost unnoticeable. So now what are my final impressions of the Samsung Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus? And personally, I really like the S10 Plus in terms of size, but I also held on the S10 and really enjoy that as well, so I'm actually kind of split. I think Samsung's just done a very good job in the total package, and that just has me looking forward to the next generation Note line coming out later this year. The phone itself feels very good in the hand, it looks very stylish, and you also have the triple camera setup which is on both models, and the wide camera is something that I'd love to see on more and more smartphones. With that being said, I wish some more major improvements were made to the main two cameras, or especially the main camera, and the quality of the secondary telephoto camera is still a little bit worse than the main camera. The battery life has definitely been improved though, and the wireless power share is something that I definitely see myself using. And I also like that Samsung is one of the only companies in 2019 that's still going to have the micro SD card slot and the headphone jack. Even though the future is moving towards USB Type-C as well as wireless, a lot of people might still argue that it's good to have something just in case. So I think it's nice that Samsung is focused on improvements in hardware in order to make this phone a nice 2019 device, but also keep things that people have loved in the past. The display itself is very beautiful, and now that it covers more of the surface on the front, Samsung has been able to keep the same size of the device while giving you a larger display. As always, if you guys have any questions of the Samsung Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus or in general, make sure you drop them down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.